Is he ready yet for a Premier League start, do you think?
Yes, he is. Yes, he's been very good. I think our first two games, I've been more than happy with the performances, both against Fulham and Liverpool. I think the team that I've chosen to play has played well, but with Max Meyer, but I'll also add Kouyaté and Jordan Ayew. I think all of them have been very, very impressive in training, and they can feel themselves perhaps a little bit unlucky that at the moment the ones that I've actually chosen have played well enough to keep them out of the team. But I wouldn't hesitate to put any of those three into the team. Same applies to Vicente Guaita.
If Max Meyer does get a start on Sunday, what kind of impact do you think he's going to have for Palace?
Well, he's a good player, there's no question of that. I think his CV proves that. I think the things that were written about him and how he was talked about before he came here, that's basically what he is. He's a very good footballer. He's capable of playing anywhere across that midfield positions, either in a 3 or a 4. He can play anywhere across there. He's quick-footed, and he's similar, funnily enough, to a lot of players that seem to be coming into the game at a top level here. You know, Kante, of course, was obviously one, but you know, now we see the Keitas and the Torreiras and these type of players coming that many years ago people would have looked and said, oh, he's too small. You know, he's not tall or robust enough. But in actual fact, their qualities and their pace and their energy means that they are more than big enough to play. So I think we've signed a player who seems to be finding a position in many teams in the league.
Well, it's Watford on Sunday. They've had a great start, but the last few years Palace have been a real problem scene for Watford. You think back to the playoff final last December at Selhurst, there was that smash and grab late win. Do you agree that Palace are a bogey team now for Watford?
I don't think in those terms. It's a good, you know, you're reminding me of the historical results, and in doing so I can understand why they might think that, but I've got to say I don't think that way. We don't judge teams along those terms. We judge them in relation to the threat they're going to cause us and any weaknesses we think we might find to exploit. That's everything for us. We don't think in terms, well, this will be an easy game because we're their bogey team. Quite the opposite, I think, really. The danger with believing that you're someone's bogey team is that you might be very disappointed one day when they play well enough to beat you.
And over the last two games at Vicarage Road, there have been diving controversies involving Wilf last April. He said afterwards there was an agenda against him. Previous match, Harry the Hornet was on the pitch diving behind Wilf. What did you make of all that, and has there been an agenda? Is there still an agenda against Wilf Zaha?
Well, that's his words, not mine. I mean, if you're asking me whether Harry the Hornet, who I presume is the mascot, should dive in that way, I think it's disgraceful. You know, because that's not what football matches are about. You know, and certainly if it's provoking the crowd into looking for something which isn't there, it should be stopped. Wilf Zaha does not dive for penalties. He gets knocked over sometimes. Sometimes he gets knocked over or unbalanced without it necessarily being a foul or a penalty, because he runs at such speed and he's got such agility with the ball. But he certainly doesn't dive. But of course, unfortunately, if teams try to take every advantage they can, you've mentioned the mascot. I would be very disappointed if a Crystal Palace mascot was doing something like that to provoke the crowd against an opponent, and if I found out about it, I'd stop it.
Just one final one, now the loan window is closing soon. What are your thoughts, your feelings about possibly loaning out Punch and Williams or Suarez before the end of the month?
Well, we don't have that many players, you know. I mean, if you loan out those three, we might be starting to put a team out. We've got a very, very small squad of players here. We've added 3 and lost 5 from last season. So, you know, I'm not anxious to loan players out. When it comes to those individuals you mentioned, we listen to, you know, what options are available to them. But most importantly of all, what we're going to have to do is to look at the situation and say, can we afford to let this player go on loan? Much as though, you know, he might not be first choice here at the moment, and much as though he would obviously relish the chance to get a more regular game or a better chance of a more regular game, they are contracted to us, and the big question will always be, can we afford to let them go?
To get them fit, though?
Oh, they are fit. All those players are fit. Having said that, perhaps why they limped out of training today with a slight muscle problem, so I might be telling you a lie when I say he's fit. I haven't spoken to the physios yet, and I don't quite know the extent of that injury which forced him to limp out at the end of the training session. But he was as fit as a butcher's dog at the start of today's training, as were the other two.
Thank you.
Thanks.
James from PLP.
Hi, Roy. You take last season into account as well. Palace on a pretty good away run of form. Is that something you've tried extra hard to focus on, getting the away performances better?
Honestly, no. I mean, we try very hard to get all our performances better, but we don't differentiate in that way. That the way we try to play is fairly consistent. I mean, obviously, we take very much into account what the other team does and where their strengths are and where we'd like to have problems, and even work at that during the week. But we don't change our general philosophy, our general principles, and then we certainly don't change them in that way that, right, this is an away game, that means X, but next week we're at home, that means Y. We definitely don't do that.
Wilfried Zaha needs one more goal to become the club's all-time Premier League goal scorer, and given the new contract as well, I guess he must be pretty excited.
Yes, he's excited. Wilf is a pretty enthusiastic sort of trainer, especially if you're doing the type of things he likes to do. Then he's an extremely enthusiastic trainer. But he's working hard in his goal scoring this year. I've noticed a big difference in the intensity with which he approaches goal chances, certainly in training, and that will carry over into games. And needing one more goal to beat Chris's record, I don't think there's any doubt that he'll get it. The big question is when he'll get it, and then the next question will be how big a margin of goals is he going to rack up so that his record lasts for a long time to come. Chris Armstrong's has lasted quite a long time, so I remember trying to buy him when I was at Blackburn Rovers.
Okay.
Just one more. I know that some of the away performances in particular have been very pleasing to you. What have you seen in the first couple of performances this season that have really pleased you? What's the most pleasing aspect, I guess, of this season?
Yeah, I think the fact that we've been able to pick up so quickly from where we finished last season. We finished last season very strongly. I thought the way the team was playing then, the shape of the team, the attitude, the application that the players were putting into the games was very good, and I've been delighted that through a pre-season we've managed to retain that. And of course what we do now, we try to work harder to become even better, because there aren't many coaches who will sit in front of you and say my team is a finished article. We all believe there's a margin for progression, and I know that I've got a modest and humble enough group of players to understand that too. But it pleases me that we aren't suddenly searching desperately for the play that served us so well towards the end of last season. We seem to have found that very, very early on. And of course now the trick is to keep it. It's all very well, like you say, Watford have started well. We've had 2 games which I'm more than satisfied with, but this is the 3rd one, and you start always with a clean slate, and however pleased you might have been with the game before, it doesn't necessarily affect the next one. You've got to come out and find what has made you good in the last ones and bring that to the field again. And that sounds like the most obvious truism of all time, but that is what being a professional sportsman is about.
Thank you. Okay, Anita. Yeah, from BBC.
Hi.
What do you expect of Watford this week, and has their start to the season surprised you?
Well, I expect a very tough game for a start. I expect a very competitive game. I expect a team that will be as anxious to do well and get points from the game as we are. And I think the start to their season has been excellent. It couldn't be better. To take 6 points as they've done. So they've really got to be delighted, because the league is about points, and doing well in the Premier League is getting those points on the board as quick as you possibly can. So to get 6 from 2, they've got to be cock a hoop. So we're aware that we're going to go to a ground, Vicarage Road, which is always a problematic place to go, in the sense that you know you're going to get a very tough game, and the opponents are going to be doing everything they possibly can to make your life difficult.
As you mentioned, they've had an excellent start to the season. We've obviously seen that they've got firepower not only in their strikers but in the midfield too, with the likes of Roberto Pereira. How are you going to stop them on Sunday?
Well, we did quite well, I thought, on Monday night, stopping Watford for long periods of time. Liverpool for long periods of time. I thought we did quite well in that respect, and you know they're pretty renowned for their firepower as well, not only up front but through midfield. So the shape of the team and the quality of, and effort that we put into our defending, I've got to hope that will serve us in good stead again against the Watford team, who have also got lots of, as you say, firepower and lots of threats. Luckily, we believe we have a few threats of our own, and we're hoping, therefore, that it will be a competitive game. I'm sure it will be a hard-fought one, because there's an element of derby about it, even though we're not exactly on top of each other in terms of our two grounds. But our fans and their fans will be desperate to see their team win the game, so everything is set for a very good game.
Right, we saw at the World Cup lots of close games, lots of goals, and very few draws, and only one goalless draw. In terms of the start of the Premier League, we've seen a similar thing. So how much has football changed? Has it changed because of the World Cup, or was attacking football and goals always going to be?
The question is far too philosophical for you. First of all, I'd have to accept the premise that the World Cup gave us this. And then I've got to accept another premise that the start of the Premier League has given us that. And I'm afraid I don't know if I can accept either premise. I'm not so certain that the attacking football that I saw in the World Cup was anything near as exciting as the attacking football I've seen in the first couple of games of the Premier League. And I thought a lot of the games in the World Cup were really either attack v defence, or teams where one team is so clearly superior to the other. You don't see that in the Premier League to the same extent. So I'm afraid your premise escapes me to start off with. If I reduce the question to a simpler level, do I think that the Premier League has started strongly this year with a lot of goals, a lot of offensive-minded football, a lot of teams anxious and willing to play on the front foot and not just try to keep the score down, then I'd say, yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. And I would have thought our game against Liverpool was a prime example of that. I don't think too many people expected us to go anything like toe-to-toe with Liverpool, but I thought that we did for long periods of the game.
Sunday's game features two strikers